Welcome to the next session of the Republican Hour with Charlie Copeland. And this second session, we're going to interview and talk with another Republican candidate, this one for state Senate in the city of Wilmington, Robert Martin. Robert, pleasure.
Pleasure's mine.
Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Now, I've had the opportunity to get to know you over the last few weeks. Been very impressed. And so for the three people out there who like me, that's a good thing. But you've been in and around the city for a long, long time. Restaurateur, entrepreneur, business guy. So tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, originally from Hazelhurst, Mississippi. I moved here when I was around 6 years old. Been in Southbridge off and on all that time. Worked for several Fortune 500 companies. Spent some time in the United States Marine Corps, in the Marine Corps Reserves. But for the most part, I'm a what'd you say, Wilmingtonian.
Yeah.
And Southbridge, born, not born, but raised.
That's great. And so you've been a Republican for a long time? I mean...
Yes, I've been a Republican. A funny story, my great-grandmother in Mississippi, she said every time a Republican is, now they're all Democrats, and she said every time a Republican is in office, I tend to get more out of state government and local government, and that always resonated with me over the years. So at one time I was a Democrat, but yeah, hearing stories like that, and one of my heroes happened to be Ronald Reagan, and just watching tapes of Reagan and just sitting back reflecting on his message, just of how positive America is and how strong America is, and he just kept a positive, upbeat message, and that just resonated with me throughout the years.
Well, you mentioned Ronald Reagan, and I was talking to a former judge in Wilmington, African American, who's a Republican, and he had run for city council back in the early '80s as a Republican. He said, look, you don't know how hard it is to run as a Republican when Ronald Reagan's in office. And I said, look, I ran as a white guy in 2008 when Barack Obama was running for president. I know exactly how hard it is.
Right.
I think that it's the philosophy, right? I mean, what is the role of government? And I think it's interesting that your grandmother sort of said, hey, when a Republican's in office, I tend to get more. And I think that sort of talks about the effectiveness of trying to run government efficiently. There's a strong misunderstanding that Republicans don't want government. Which is absurd, because you need government to provide all the services that it does. What you want is those services provided well.
Exactly.
And you look in the state of Delaware today, and you have the whole medical examiner's office problem, where thousands of court cases are going to be thrown out because they mishandled that. You look at I-495, it's shut down for months, and tens of thousands of people are negatively impacted because all the agencies weren't responsible. You look at the whole Travelgate scandal with Chip Flowers and Governor Markell and others who didn't even do their travel policies right. And that is one of the things I've talked about, why you need a competitive Republican Party, is you need somebody else out there making sure that the other side is honest and effective. You care to comment on that at all?
Sure. We all know that there's cronyism out there. And like you said, if you have one party that is dominant in the system, that cronyism can run pretty widespread. So my job, what I would like to do, is go down to Dover with some conservative values. I know the term Republican kind of makes a lot of people, it's like Republican, it's step back from that word. So I'm going down with a conservative standpoint, with conservative values. The reason being is that most people actually, and I'm not just going to say African Americans, most people actually have a conservative standpoint. So with that being said, you are correct with Travelgate, with the medical examinations office. You know what? You just need watchdogs down there that's not affiliated with the same people that's been down in Dover for 20, 30 years.
Yeah, and again, you're running in the Senate, and when I was in the Senate, I served for 6 years, and I never intended on making a career out of it. But I did, I can see where somebody might serve for 20 years or something like that. But the average length of time that a Democrat is in the state Senate nowadays is over 20 years. I mean, where are the new ideas? Where's the creativity? You know, you are an entrepreneur. You have to be creative every day, otherwise you go out of business. But if you're going down to Dover and doing the same old for decades, then you wind up with a state that has no creativity or no innovation, and therefore no economy, and it stagnates. I mean, you know, is that the kind of energy or look that you're trying to provide, or energy to the General Assembly?
The energy I'm trying to bring to the General Assembly is, like you stated, you have politicians that have been down there for 20 years, and they sit on a lot of committees, and God bless them, I understand they sit on a lot of committees. They do a lot of things in the community where they sit and chair a lot of boards or whatever the case may be. But guess what they're doing? They're sitting. Okay, the energy I want to walk. The same way I'm going to walk when I'm campaigning is the same way I'm going to walk the city and continue to walk the city. And when I say that, I know we used to say, well, we used to walk, you know, a mile to school and a mile back in the snow. But yeah, I walked from Southbridge to Howard High School, so I have no problem with walking. I carried a pack on my back and I walked for miles. So the energy I'm going to bring is the energy of walking the streets, talking to the people, letting them know that conservative values work. Okay, it's not about Democrat, it's not about Republican, it's about what do we have in common, and we have those conservative values in common. So to answer your question, yes, the energy is let's walk these streets more. God bless you for sitting on boards, and God bless you for being on this committee and that committee, but you got to get out here and talk to the people that you represent when you go down to Dover.
Yeah, and I have noticed that, and even when I was there, where you get a lot of folks that do just that, and the places that they go are the big events, right, where they can be seen, they can get introduced and waved and all that kind of stuff. But it really is the one-on-one. How do I help this individual's life get better? What issue are they facing that there's a government service or something that I might be able to improve? And so I think that's a very admirable objective, because I think that's exactly right. I mean, you've got to help people one-on-one. You can't help people because you're on the right board or the right commission or getting seen by the right people. Are there any specific issues that you're thinking about as you've decided to take this plunge?
So you're asking me my why. My why is at being in business here in Wilmington. I don't know if you ever saw Wyatt Earp, but his brother had said, "Here I am walking around in the city, and it's like I'm being slapped in the face," because he saw that the town was not prospering. It was pretty much running amok. Now, I'm not calling our counterparts villains or anything like that, but the analogy is, I do pretty good with real estate, and like I said, I own a restaurant. I do pretty good, but just walking here and seeing the plight and just seeing some of the other struggles that a lot of people are telling me about, and I have ways and ideas in which I can help them, but it has to be done at another level. And someone had told me everyone does social media, everyone does Facebook nowadays. I'm on Facebook, I'm debating, and people will inbox me because they don't want to say it out loud that they agree with me. And they'll inbox me and say, "Well, Robert, that really made sense." And then every now and then someone will get upset and say, "Well, you just need to run for office." So guess what, Charlie? I'm here and I'm just going to run for office.
Well, and that's great. And that whole thing about people sort of one-on-one coming to you and saying, I think you're right. I was on one of the shows on a Sunday evening. It was Norm Oliver's show. He had let Calvin Brown and I do a show some time ago, and we were on, and this person called from the city because we were doing a call-in, and they said, "Where have you guys been? All my neighbors think I'm a Democrat, but we're getting killed out here." And I don't know that he meant that literally, but he said, it's just the city is not what it should be or could be, and you guys haven't been there. You guys meaning Republicans, and honestly, and I've said this on this show before, that individual was absolutely right. That it was a failure of the Republican Party, to leave the city over the last 50 years. I mean, the last time there was a Republican majority in city council was before I was born. So I mean, it was over decades, but we walked away and allowed, in many ways, nice people, but incompetent people take office and run the city, and go down to Dover and represent the city. And we've got serious problems that need serious people, people with some real knowledge, some real life experience that's not sitting on a board or a commission, but so through the Schools of Hard Knocks to bring conservative solutions, not, oh, let's just throw a bunch of money at it and everything will be fine.
Correct, correct.